Hello and welcome to this edition of Take 5 with Tony. This is our fourth and final in the series we've been doing on genetic engineering and GMO foods. As this segment winds up, I'm going to be encouraging you to get involved and take some action, but the first action I want you to take is to read this book. Go out and buy and read this book by Stephen M. Druker, Altered Genes, Twisted Truths. This is by far the most comprehensive, thorough, and painstakingly documented book on every element of genetic modification and the GMO enterprise. It's really one not to be missed. So let's talk about this question of labeling. The U.S. House of Representatives has recently passed a bill that some folks are calling the Dark Act, H.R. 1599, which makes completely illegal any labeling laws at any level regarding GMO foods. States can no longer label GMO foods. In fact, those states that have already passed GMO labeling laws, they would be nullified. And even further, cities, counties, and states can pass no type of law or ordinance at all that would in any way limit the production of GMO crops. It's quite extraordinary. This is going to be considered by the U.S. Senate in just a matter of weeks in September of this year. Now, the justification for this anti-labeling movement is threefold. First is this idea that genetic engineering is just like any other form of breeding, no different from traditional breeding methods, from hybridization, so the foods we get are the same, they're equivalent. Well, you remember the discussion of that point and how completely false that is. Secondly is the idea of food safety and the statements over and over that there's no evidence anywhere at any time of problems related to genetic engineering and human health, or even genetic engineering and the health of laboratory animals. Well, again, we've seen that not only is there some evidence, there's quite a bit of evidence in authoritative peer-reviewed journals, but that every single time a study shows a strong connection between GMO consumption and serious health problems, the study and its authors are attacked, they're vilified, they're dismissed as junk science. So much so that the argument becomes unwinnable. There's no evidence of GMO foods and health problems, but when there is evidence, we simply ignore it. That's a catch-22 in the classic sense. And then the last thing, we opened our series with a discussion of GMO crops and yields. And you'll recall that the evidence is quite clear. GMO crops of corn, soybeans, and other things yield at best marginally, slightly more than what traditional hybrids and crops can use. So it isn't true that GMO methods are the same as traditional breeding, not at all. It isn't true that there's no evidence at all of problems of health and illness relating from GMO consumption. And it certainly isn't true that we must have GMO crops in order to fight world hunger and feed the world. All of those, the entire foundation of the argument against knowing what's in our food, against labeling GMO crops, is completely false. So I encourage you, again, to get Stephen Drucker's book. But even before you do that, to write to your senator, to speak out to your elected representatives to say, I've done my homework on GMO foods. We don't need them for world hunger. They're probably not good for us, and they're certainly not equivalent to traditionally bred crops. We need labeling laws, and the United States Congress should support our right to know what's in foods. Thanks, and I hope this short series on GMO crops has been helpful to you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.